brief intro to Kevin Owocki, although you probably all know who Kevin is. Kevin is the founder of Gitcoin, a platform that would it not exist, we would be broke as metagame probably. This because we essentially produce public goods, and innovation concerning public good funding is what Gitcoin is all about. And so we very much appreciate that in this whole space. And also, Kevin, I think, hello. Would you also describe yourself as a kind of like missionary sometimes of the memes of solarpunk and open source software and organizing for impacts?
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of some of the idea of what we're doing. Our mission is to build and fund digital public goods at Gitcoin DAO. And Gitcoin's gone through a lot of iterations over the years, but super just proud that our mission has stayed the same. We've been dogmatic about our mission, even if the mechanisms have changed.
All right. So we're all ready to be green pilled. So
Yeah,
bring it on, Kevin.
I got my green pills right here. I wish I could give them out to you digitally. Cool. I'll share my screen and take you through some slides. Planning on doing maybe 15 minutes of slides and then hoping to do 15 minutes of discussion, or I guess 10 minutes of discussion since I'm 6 minutes late, but we'll go for it from here.
Okay.
Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Cool. Well, I put together this small talk to go through how I think about what we're talking about. So basically, hey everyone, I'm Kevin Owocki, one of the founders of Gitcoin. We funded $62 million worth of public goods. So basically open source software and adjacent things that we all derive benefit from in the world. So what I want to talk about today is the values of the Web3 ecosystem and my take on how we could extend those values to be a little bit more pluralistic. So in the Bitcoin white paper and in the original OG blockchain ecosystem, there's this idea of cypherpunk, which is any individual who is advocating for the widespread use of cryptography and privacy enhancing technologies, as well as sovereignty as a route to social and political change. And I think you see a lot of this ethos in the Web3 ecosystem. I would consider myself to be sort of a solarpunk. And solarpunk is an art movement that envisions how the future of humanity might look if we succeeded in solving contemporary challenges with an emphasis on sustainability and things like climate change and pollution. So I think it's quite interesting that there's different sets of values in this space as the space grows. And solarpunk and cypherpunk, I think, are actually adjacent to each other and in many ways very complementary with each other. So what would it look like if we had a society that optimized not just for the privacy and sovereignty of the individuals, but for collectivist things like solving sustainability problems like climate change and like the funding of our digital infrastructure. So any collectivist issue. So I think the opportunity in the Web3 space is that we have this ultimate coordination tool in Ethereum. What if we use it to solve some coordination failures? So we now have a transparent, which means that anyone can inspect its state, global, which means you can get to it from anywhere, incorruptible because of its immutability, and programmable substrate for global coordination. Let's use it to solve some of these coordination failures like climate change or underfunded digital infrastructure or solving for surveillance capitalism. Which is like, these things are all coordination failures, things that none of us would really choose, but for lack of a better coordination mechanism, they occur. And the inverse of coordination failures and these existential risks is the funding of our public goods, the funding of all of the things that we rely on but sometimes take for granted, like fresh air, herd immunity, open source software, public roads. I mean, I could go on and on the amount of infrastructure that has been built that is a public good. And kind of part of the idea that Gitcoin's been working on is what if we could fund some of these public goods with cryptocurrency? And I think that the atomic building block of this movement and the movement of using crypto for these regenerative means is this thing that we call an impact DAO, which is kind of like a DAO that creates positive externalities for the public. I think I heard some sound back over there. I don't know if someone's mic is off. I'll just keep going. Yeah, so basically the atomic building block here is an impact DAO, which is any DAO that creates positive externalities for the public. There's a couple examples here. Proof of Humanity, which is a impact DAO focused on UBI and making sure that people are streamed tokens for being human, provides a base of financial support for the people that use it. Climate DAO, which is a DAO that is focused on making Web3 more climate neutral. So basically carbon credits and putting those on the blockchain and then helping blockchain projects become climate neutral. And then Gitcoin DAO, which builds and funds other digital public goods. So kind of like a meta impact DAO. I think it's really important to think about these impact DAOs as not just creating financial capital. I'm a big fan of Gregory Landua's work, in which he coined that there are 8 types of capital, and financial capital is just one of them. So what would it look like if we thought about capital not just as financial instruments and securities, but actually social capital in the form of influence and relationships, material capital in the form of tools and buildings and infrastructure, living capital as in soil and living organisms and land, intellectual capital as in our intellectual property and the images and words and ideas that we all have, experiential capital, spiritual capital, and cultural capital. So when I'm talking about impact DAOs, I want to be clear that when we're talking about positive externalities, we're not just talking about on the financial vector. We're talking about impact on any of these different types of capital. So what kind of cryptographic peer-to-peer systems could we build that help turn financial capital into living capital, or financial capital into spiritual capital, or experiential capital? And I think that that's what's really cool, especially in a world where impact DAOs can kind of stack with each other. So basically the idea is that, I'm here representing Gitcoin DAO, and Gitcoin DAO is compatible with Klima DAO, and we're actually going through a proposal with them in order to make Gitcoin DAO carbon neutral. We've also work with Proof of Humanity. Proof of Humanity provides civil resistance back to Gitcoin DAO, and in turn, we provide funding to Proof of Humanity via Gitcoin grants. So it's just really cool to me that each of these impact DAOs can benefit from all of the other stacked impact DAOs that are supporting their work. And by definition, each of these projects creates positive externalities for the world. So by definition, each of these impact DAOs is pretty good neighbors to each other. And what I think about when I think about a pluralistic civilizational scale infrastructure for funding public goods is that it's completely bottom up and emergent. And we're going to see a bunch of different mechanisms and funding sources that create a pluralistic approach to creating impact on the world. And that pluralism is actually such a feature because it allows these impact DAOs to benefit from each other, and it creates a diversity of mechanisms through which we fund each other. One tangible example of this is how quadratic funding stacks in Gitcoin grants. So we've actually moved from just doing one round of quadratic funding to doing rounds with Uniswap and with Polygon and Forefront and Synthetics. And we're also doing these thematic rounds around longevity and climate change and supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion. And one of the cool things is that when a grant gets into each of the matching pools, then it gets matched by multiple matching pools every time there's a contribution. So I might get on a $1 contribution, I might get hundreds of dollars of matching for the main round, and I might get hundreds of dollars more for it being in the climate round at the same time. And that matching stacks. And so each quadratic funding round is kind of like a crypto economic force. Like you can think of it as like a fan. And when a grant is in multiple quadratic funding rounds, it's almost like it's in a jet engine, a crypto economic force that funds digital public goods at higher velocities. And I think that that's really cool how all these things stack together. Another thing that I think is really, really kind of interesting about impact DAOs is just the diversity in ways that they run. So each impact DAO basically has a mechanism and a funding source through which it is powered. So Gitcoin grants mechanism is quadratic funding, and its funding source is the Ethereum Foundation, DeFi DAOs that have funded Gitcoin grants, and NFT drops. But you think about other impact DAOs like Moloch DAO, which has a completely different mechanism for pooling funds and allowing people to rage quit out of them, and was funded by Ethereum Foundation and Consensus back in the day. Proof of Humanity has a civil resistant web of trust that it uses as its mechanism, and the inflation funding that comes from that actually is what creates the UBI. And then, of course, one of my other favorite projects out there that's working on this stuff is Optimism, who's been thinking a lot about retroactive public goods and what does it look like to have a citizen's house of badge holders that are helping spend the Optimism sequencer fees that can be millions of dollars per month on the public good. So this is really neat because, again, these impact DAOs can stack on top of each other. And the result is that we have this pluralistic civilizational scale infrastructure for funding public goods. And what's really cool about that is in a world where crypto is eating software and software is eating the world, you can kind of just like map out visually how we're going to create more impact within the world of crypto and within the world of software, but then also how it could stack to go out and actually regenerate the wider world using cryptocurrency. All we have to do is prove out these mechanisms. And then once we've proved them out, we can scale the funding sources of these mechanisms from there. And so this is part of why, when I wrote the book Greenpillin, How Crypto Can Regenerate the World, one of the reasons why I really think there's a lot of tailwinds is because crypto is eating software and software is eating the world. What would have to be true for us to ride this wave in order to create more infrastructure for creating impact on the world? So that's like kind of what my work has evolved into as I've handed off the reins of Gitcoin to other great people in the DAO. And Gitcoin itself has decentralized is how do I create like a stigmergic feedback loop where we realize that if we all collectively take this green pill, which just means create it using crypto in order to create impact on the world, we can create a more solar punk world. And there's this belief system where if we believe it's going to happen and we all kind of create this Schelling point in this feedback loop, then it's going to happen. But if we decide not to do it, then we continue to sort of just maintain the status quo. So I wrote a book called, I'll just take you guys to the site for it, but greenpill.party. And so basically on this site, you can go down and you can take a pledge. Like you could pledge 1% of your net worth to public goods. And if that's too much for you, you can just pick up the book, or you can listen to the Green Pill podcast, which I've partnered with Bankless in order to do. If you open up the Green Pill podcast, you can see that we've done about 20 episodes with other Impact DAO founders in the Web3 space, from starting with Vitalik Buterin to Optimism's Carl Flourish to Santi Siri. And then the most recent one is Penbala with Naran Babaloa. So Green Pill is just kind of like this headless brand that we're allowing anyone to kind of join the movement and talk about using crypto for impact. So that's kind of some of the work that I've been up to and how I'm thinking about this stuff. And happy to take any questions or pass along any resources to anyone who's interested in the MetaFam. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Can we do Q&A, or I don't know if there's like people out there that have questions, or if y'all have questions.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for that wonderful conversation, presentation.
Yeah.
And nice haircut. Probably a lot of people are saying.
I can still thought lead. I just don't look like blockchain Jesus anymore. My wife wanted me to get a haircut, so I'm back among the normies.
All right. Let's see if we have anything in the chat. Cool. Yep, people. That's the comment. Nice.
The comment is about my haircut. Nice. I should have just led with that. We should have gotten it out of the way.
We just can't get over it.
Weird. Well, yeah, I mean, happy to figure out how we can figure out between Metagame and Gitcoin what the next evolution of the relationship is. Been a big fan of the Meta Cartel family since inception, and always love hanging out with you all and vibing on public goods and impact. And at the very least, I know I'll see everyone at MetaCon 2 in Denver in September. So looking forward to that.
Awesome. Thank you for that shout out.
I saw that you work on some on that, what is it called? The Passport with Serena.
Yeah, Passport.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't know how many of y'all are interested in Sybil resistance, but Gitcoin has put a lot of work into Sybil resistance, which just basically means sock puppet resistance. How do we create systems that are more one human, one vote, as opposed to one token, one vote? And we actually released a piece of infrastructure called Gitcoin Passport, which allows you to integrate, like, get a stamp from Proof of Humanity and ENS and Twitter and Bright ID that all attest to your like personhood, and then that's going to hopefully make quadratic funding more bot resistant in the future. So that's been a recent development that Gitcoin DAO has come out, and hoping to create more Sybil resistance in the wider ecosystem as well.
Yeah, super important. Yeah, I really hope
Yeah.
there will be more democratic DAOs after this problem is.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of the ideas is that Gitcoin's put a lot of work into creating Sybil resistance at Gitcoin. What if we could extend our Sybil resistance to the rest of the ecosystem? Is kind of the idea in the larger end game with Gitcoin Passport. So if there's any builders out there that want Sybil resistance in their DApp, please reach out to me and we can chat about it.
Well, we definitely need it.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for having me, Peeth. See you hopefully at an event sometime soon. Unipuff, always good to see you. Cheers, gents.
Thank you for coming on.
Do you have time for just one question?
Sure, yeah. Although I've already answered the big one about my haircut.
Yeah, we all said okay. That was Kevin. Okay, everybody. Yeah, and it has to do with this common thread that you could see through this whole presentation about plurality and this notion and basically this philosophy of pluralism. And I wanted to know your thoughts concerning this whole situation that we're going through as a space, and the bear market and the fear and uncertainty and instability that many organizations are facing, and this way of talking that you see often now, which goes like, oh, a lot of the organizations that existed will stop existing. They won't have enough money to sustain themselves. We will see the loss of a lot of organizations, and only the only some will stay. And for me, this sounds like a very non-pluralistic way of speaking. Let's say it is what is actually happening, but I don't know what the effect will be.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that so the reason why pluralism is important, and by the way, like Glenn Weil has a really excellent essay, why am I a pluralist, that I can link. And Aaron and McMillan and I actually did an episode about practical pluralism in the Web3 space that I think came out quite well. Aaron, by the way, runs another major quadratic funding protocol, and we wanted to send a signal to everyone that we're friends, even though we both run things that are vaguely similar. So, I mean, I just think that like we shouldn't imbue moats in the EVM, and we should have these modular systems that are composable and working together. And, that creates a better experience for consumers, for DApp consumers. It creates more composability for builders so they can build on top of things. And it creates anti-fragility, right? Because if one mechanism fails, then there's other mechanisms out there. And I think those are some really good arguments for pluralism, in my opinion. Now, with respect to evolution of the space, I'll actually share my screen once more, and this is going to get weird and trippy. I hope that you all enjoy this. But I tweeted this about 2 months ago about how I'm starting to think of Web3 in evolutionary terms. And just bear with me because this idea is a little bit out there. But I took this idea of an evolutionary tree of life and recentered it around the blockchain ecosystem, starting with millions of memes ago when the Byzantine generals problem was solved. And basically what was created out of that was the Bitcoin ecosystem. So you have Bitcoin and then its layer twos and its ecosystem of DApps, but mostly centralized exchanges that are built on top of that. And as we go from millions of memes ago to today, there's a bear market that filters out all these other little branches of projects in the ecosystem. And so as we see this ecosystem evolve, we've got BTC forks, and then we've got ETH, and then we've got DAOs and DeFi and alt layer ones and L2s and NFTs and play to earn and regen crypto and DAO tools and DAOs. So like when you ask me about the bear market filtering out some of these projects, I guess my question is, well, what's the mechanism that sort of culls these projects and removes them from the evolutionary tree? And what is important to me is that, you know, in nature, we have natural selection, which is basically the survival of the fittest. Does my genome go on into the future? In crypto, I think we have like market-based mechanisms for deciding what survives and what doesn't. And, you know, there's like treasury management and can you hire and fire and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's going to be like a culling of projects during the bear market, and there always is. But that culling of projects shouldn't be because competition and because each organism in a niche is like the apex predator and has become a monopolistic presence in its ecosystem. So I don't know, it's kind of a complicated thought space to be in, but I would separate it as like two separate things. Like pluralism is important for anti-fragility and ecosystem health, and then like viewing it in an evolutionary frame. And the bear market will cull them, but hopefully that doesn't mean that there's a monopoly in any of these niches in the future. So I don't know. What's your reaction to that?
That was amazing. I want to look at it for hours.
Cool. I'll post a link to it in here.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a big fan of using biological analogies and this and applying it to social systems and this whole biomimicry kind of design space philosophy. And it's what I have to say about this is that when we take evolution principles from evolutionary biology and apply it to social systems, mostly it has been very simplistic because the ecological aspect that in evolutionary theory wasn't that prominent when we previously tried to do this, but adding this ecosystem perspective in which, in ecology, collaboration is the most effective strategy most of times, changes the individualistic social Darwinist, only the strong will take power kind of mindset that was very prominent in corporate businesses, like in the 70s, 80s, when this biological analogy started getting into the workplace. So really appreciate what's going on here.
Such a rich set of ideas in general. Like nature has basically tested these ideas for millions of years, and they have a high Lindy effect because of it. You'd be crazy not to try to learn from that. So yeah, +1 on the biomimicry stuff.
Yeah, I hope to see more of that. Actually, people are speaking a lot about that. That's what it's exciting about this space.
Nice. Well, like I said, I'm a big fan of Metagame and of MetaFam, and looking forward to MCon in September. So let me know how we can all work together. And I think that we're building this rich ecology of an infinite garden in the Ethereum space. So Keith, looking forward to catching up and seeing how we can jam together.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on. Great seeing you. And the Gitcoin Grand Sound going on for a bit more.
I didn't even show the Gitcoin Grants round. It ends in 2 days, and there's $3 million worth of matching. So get your coins, get your grant contributions in, and we'll be doing another one in 3 months. But you got to get your contributions in the next two days. Are you pointing to a QR code because you have a? Fuck yeah! Damn, you're promoting Gitcoin more than me. I gotta get on the marketing train. Sweet. All right, thanks for having me. I'll see you all on the internet. Peace and love.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you, Kevin.